Everyone, welcome back to All Great Books. I'm Ellie, and today I'm doing the Reading My Country tag. This tag was originally created by Cook, Read, Create, and her video is no longer available, but I was tagged by Laurane from Reading with Maca, and I will link her below, and we're just going to jump into it. It's kind of exactly what it sounds like, a tag talking about reading the books and talking about them from your country. So the first question is, what country are you going to talk about? And I am from Australia. I've lived in Australia my entire life, and we're going to talk about those. This was some of these questions were a little bit difficult because while I have lived here in Australia and here in Melbourne for all of my life, my grandparents, all four of them moved over here from Britain. My mum was born over in Britain, so a lot of the things that I was read as a child and things like that were British. So there was kind of a little bit of difficulty working out what I could count. But question number 2 is, what is your favourite childhood book from your country? So I went like really young childhood. So I have Possum Magic by Mem Fox, which is a picture book, and I also have Gumnut Babies by May Gibbs, which is also, they're all picture books. And I had a couple of things as a kid that were also Gumnut Babies, like a baby bowl and a cup and things like that. And also probably one of my favourites was Blinky Bill by Dorothy Wall, which is a story about a koala. And my grandfather had a computer game of Blinky Bill in the early 2000s when I was probably about 5 or 6, that I used to absolutely love. Every time I would go over to his house, I would absolutely love playing that. Question number 3 is, what is a book from your country that you read in school? And this can be primary school or high school. We didn't really read anything in primary school as a class. I read a lot by myself. That's really when I got into reading. But we didn't really read anything as a class. We did other things in English, which always made me sad because I always wanted to read. But when we got to high school, we had a couple of doozies in the first few years in particular. But the first one I want to talk about, we read in year 9, so I was 14, 15, and we read Tomorrow When the War Began by John Marsden, which is kind of like an Aussie YA classic. It's about a bunch of teens who go camping, and while they're away, Australia gets invaded, and like their parents are taken, and they basically form kind of like a resistance to fight back, and that's a series. We only read the first book in school, and we also happened to read it the year the movie came out, so that was definitely an experience. And my friends and I were obsessed with these books, to the point where we tried to make our own like fan film of them. But of course, you know, we're like 14, 15, so we can't drive anywhere, and it was a mess, but it was a fun time. And then in year 12, which is our final year, so 17, 18, we read Stasiland by Anna Funder. I've talked about this one a couple of times because it's one of my favourite books. So in year 11, I dropped English to take up literature instead, which were very different subjects in VCE, which is our final 2 years here in Victoria. And then I had to pick English up again in year 12 as well as literature. So I did this one in English I really didn't want to be in that class because literature was full of people who like actually liked reading, and English was just like everyone else that had to do it. So didn't have high hopes, but I loved this one. And I think I was, apart from the other people who also did Lit and English with me, I think we were probably the only people in the year that actually liked this book. But I feel like that's kind of what it's like with schoolwork sometimes. Number 4 is, what is a book set in your favourite area of the country? And or what's a book set in a place that you'd like to visit? So, going for favourite place, my favourite place is, of course, Melbourne, or Victoria in general, because it's where I've lived my entire life, and, you know, obviously it's home, so it's always going to be a favourite spot. But I went more specifically with Sorrento, which is in The Year the Maps Changed by Danielle Binks, because it's about the closest I can get to my actual favourite place in Victoria, which is Queenscliff, and Sorrento is just like across the bay. We spent a lot of childhood summers in Queenscliff, I think everyone since I was about 6, with my grandma and grandpa, and then my mum and my brother. And yes, in order to get to Queenscliff, we had to go to Sorrento to catch a ferry, so I'm counting this. This one is about a young girl named Fred living in Sorrento in 1999, yes. And it's about her and coming to terms with family and growing up and kind of learning more about the world around her. Really, really love this book. It's excellent. And then for a place I'd like to visit, I've seen most of Australia, but I went with Follow the Rabbit Proof Fence by Doris Pinkleton, which is set kind of across Western Australia. There's so these young girls, Indigenous girls who were part of the stolen generation, leave the place that they have been taken to journey back up to their families. And I have visited Perth, but I haven't gone any higher than that, and I'd really like to kind of go around that area one day, specifically to Broome, which was somewhere that my mum just like always talked about wanting to go. So I would love to be able to do that, and I think this kind of book is also one that I haven't read, but I would really love to. We studied the movie at school, so I would really like to read the book, because we never got the chance to do that. Number 5 is what is a historical fiction book set in your country? I'm going with Picnic at Hanging Rock by Jo Lindsay. This kind of correlates to the next question, which is talking about classics. This is kind of a classic. This is about some young women who, I think it's 1901, I think it's Federation, and they go up into this area of Victoria called Hanging Rock for like a school picnic, and then a bunch of girls disappear. And yeah, it's kind of a really interesting look at that. There's been a few adaptations. There was one, I think like 2 years ago maybe. And yeah, so that's a historical fiction, also kind of a classic. So question 6 is, what is a classic book from your country? So Picnic at Hanging Rock, but I also said 7 Little Australians by Ethel Turner. I don't know if I have read this one straight through. My grandma used to read this to me when I was a kid, but I don't know how much of it I've actually read. So, but it is definitely a classic. I don't know that I could tell you what it's about. It's been a long time. It's been like 20 years. But yes, the other one is My Brilliant Career by Miles Franklin. Miles Franklin is a female author and probably one of our best female authors of the time. So at the very start of Federation, so 1901, and yes, we now have the Miles Franklin Prize. The Stella Prize is also based on her first name being Stella, and so she's done a lot for the literary scene of Australia, though I have to mention that I absolutely hated this book. It's one of the worst books I've ever read, and I wouldn't recommend it, but I do really I think she's incredible. I would really encourage you to look up about her and her life, and also the prizes that she has inspired, but I don't know whether I would recommend the full book. It might be for you, was not for me. Question 7, the second last question, is what is a book from your country that you haven't read but would like to read? I picked 2 ones that are pretty new that I'm really interested in reading. I could have gone on for hours about this because I have lots of books that came out in 2020 that I'm really interested in. I've done 2 videos, so I'll link those below, and I will hopefully be talking about them, doing sort of like, what did I actually read in December. But 2 that I don't think are on those lists, I have The Mother Fault by Kate Mildenhall, which just got released not that long ago. Absolutely stunning cover. It just sounds really interesting to me. I think it's kind of like a dystopian, and I don't know, it's pretty. And then the other one I have is A Room Made of Leaves. I forgot what it was called for a second. By Kate Grenfell. Kate Grenfell has written quite a few books. The Secret River, The Lieutenant, that are quite popular and often get studied in schools, but we never did any of them. I'm not sure if I want to read those other ones at this point in time. I don't really know a lot about them, but this one sounds cool. Again, absolutely stunning cover. So I want to give this a go, and I think it'll be one that I can easily find at the library. So yeah, I'm really interested in reading that one. Number 8, our final question is, what are some of your favourite books and authors from your country? I picked out 4 here so that I could do kind of a little shout out to like Love Osway /MG, because we have such an incredible community and support around YA and middle grade here. So I really wanted to talk about some of my favourites. Starting off with, this is again like an Aussie YA classic, Melina Marchetta. This is Looking for Ella Brandy, but all of the books that I've read by her so far, I think I've read 4, are brilliant. So this is, I'm not going to go into these too much, I don't think, because I've talked about these mostly a lot. But yeah, really, really highly recommend Melina Marchetta. I know that she is an author that you can find her books in the US and UK, so highly recommend her. Another one I know that you can find is Ellie Marnie. This is Every Breath. So this is a Sherlock Holmes inspired story, but it's set here in modern day Melbourne. This is, you can't really see, this is Flinders Street in the background, which is our main train station, and it's got like a fancy front building thing. This is one of my favourite series of all time. It's beautiful, and yes, this one is also available in both the US and UK. Again, this is Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. You've probably heard me talk about this one because this is again one of my favourite books of all time. The third book is just about to come out and I'm so excited. So this is a middle grade about a girl named Morrigan Crow who goes to this like different world, and it's just really beautiful and I love it. And then finally, this is Ulti Coulter and the Narrowway Hunt by Rhiannon Williams. This is another fantasy middle grade. This has lots of like magical creatures in and that sort of thing. It's really, really great. Highly recommend it. And all 3 books in this series are already out. So yeah, there we are. That is my reading my country tag. I'm not going to tag anyone because I feel like most of the people I know that would be interested in doing this are also Australian. So yes, I'm going to leave it here. But thank you all so much for watching and I will see you guys next time. Bye!